I'm delighted to introduce today's presenters. Dr. David Hultgren is the Instructional Effectiveness Specialist at the Clinton Township campus. Prior to coming to the Clinton Township campus, he held the same position at the Port Huron campus for 2.5 years. In addition to providing professional development for faculty, he works with deans and program directors to improve their skills in coaching and evaluating faculty. Dr. Hultgren has been involved in education and training throughout his career, both in the public and private sectors. Rasharn Fuqua, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, she just got married, is the Instructional Effectiveness Specialist at the Clinton Township campus. Prior to coming to the Clinton Township campus, she's working, Rasharn, I am so sorry. My eyes jumped. Rasharn is the Dean of Human Services at the Auburn Hills campus. She's been working for Baker College for almost 9 years, beginning as an adjunct instructor at Allen Park. She has coached many faculty and staff, including 7 who have won Adjunct of the Quarter, with 2 winning Adjunct of the Year. Rasharn believes you have to bring excitement to your topic in order to energize the classroom. And with that, what I would like to do is I am going to turn the session over to the 2 of you.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you, Allison.
And you should be all set.
Right. I need to share my screen, monitor 1.
And welcome to everyone who joined us. We really appreciate you taking your time to join us today for the WebEx. And we're going to start with
all right.
Introducing ourselves again, but you know who we are. Thank you.
And that's Rasharn Fuqua. All right. Just a quick reminder, you have all seen this model, the academic improvement model. That everything we do as evaluators, as coaches, and as faculty members ourselves is designed to increase highly effective programs and delivery systems through quality teaching and learning, assessment, as well as curriculum development. With that in mind, today's session likewise is devoted to that. And if you think about the faculty growth and evaluation process and the 4 categories of that process, planning and preparation, professional expertise, learning environment, and learning facilitation, portions of today's presentation really hit on all 4 of those, but especially planning and preparation, the learning environment, and of course the learning facilitation. With that, this session was titled Coaching Faculty, Components of a Vibrant Classroom. So let's begin by talking about what do we mean by a vibrant class session. Well, it can be any of those things: energetic, exciting, stimulating, lively. And we know that it can't always be all of those things. But at the very least, it should be engaging your students in some manner. And that's where we're going to be focusing today. Our promise to you was that this session will provide evaluators with tools to coach your faculty on ways to create engaging and energized class session. And that's what we plan to do. All of you were emailed 4 documents. I trust you all received the email from Allison, which she forwarded coming from me. We will refer to that classroom lesson presentation flow self-assessment document several times during the session today. And in fact, that's going to kind of be our organizing structure for today, kind of working through that and then adding some how-tos related to each of those. Our objectives for today, that at the end of this hour, you will be able to use a tool, and that's that classroom session presentation and flow document, that's the tool, to assess your faculty members' use of the 9 components of a successful lesson. All right, and we'll be going through those 9. But in addition, we want you to gain some ideas and activities that you can suggest to your faculty members for their use in their own classrooms. And finally, we want to make sure that you can access specific resources to coach your faculty on making their sessions more vibrant. And those specific resources are those 4 documents that you were emailed. So if by chance you did not get those, feel free to contact me, or you can contact Allison, and we will make sure that you get those. A quick point about practices versus skills. A lot of what we're going to focus on today are practices to capture and maintain your students' attention, their engagement, their active involvement. Certainly some of them involve a degree of skill level, no doubt. But some are simply things to remember to do. And so as you observe your faculty member, keep some of these documents in mind, and especially this one that's going to be our guiding document as we go through today, because it can serve as a simple reminder of things to do that really don't take a lot of skill. It's just reminding faculty of their importance. Like letter writing, these practices and a good lesson involves a poignant beginning, a content-rich middle, and certainly a meaningful end. And that document can help us do that. So today, what we want to do is we want to ensure your understanding of why each of these 9 components that we're going to look at is important, and also some ways of doing each one. So here are the 9. If you printed that classroom lesson presentation flow document, you can take a look at that right now as I walk through these. But it involves providing a meaningful introduction, covering the lesson objectives and links to the SLOs, and I'm not going to talk about each of these right now on this screen because we're going to go through each of these 9. Providing a rationale. Why is this important? Seeking students' involvement. Treating students with respect. Checking for understanding. Involving students in activities both to reinforce the learning as well as provide practice for them. In some way, assessing what students have learned. And finally, the last one, providing meaningful closure to the lesson. So with that as a quick overview, let's jump into that very first one, provides a meaningful introduction. Now, on your classroom lesson presentation and flow document, you notice there's a scale from 0 to 3 for each one of those. And from 0 being, no attempt whatsoever, in this case of doing an introduction, and 3, a description of what that component would look like if it were done well. All right? So that's how that document is laid out. So when we talk about a meaningful introduction, why? Because we want to capture their attention, provide some real-life applicability, or providing links to prior knowledge, previous lessons. Certainly, we always see those links, but the links to previous lessons and how this builds on their previous learning is not always obvious to our students. Now, why do we want to make sure we do this, providing a meaningful introduction? Because quite frankly, if we don't grab their attention at the beginning of the lesson, we may never get it.
So what can we do? When we talk about providing meaningful instruction, one of the things we're talking about are those attention grabbers. And so this could be anything from talking about current events that are happening in the news, It can be hot topics that are related to your industry. It can be simply reviewing past topics or past lessons from previous weeks. It can begin with the conversation of, like, tell me what happened, or has anyone seen a various story in the news, or even asking the students, what are your thoughts from the reading? The second one that we're going to talk about is covers the lesson's objectives and links to the SLOs. And this is something that is important when you are observing faculty, is because we want to incorporate the SLOs into all of our lessons. And so a few ways that you can do that is, one, by putting the SLOs on the whiteboard every week and reference them throughout your lesson for that evening or during the day session. Another way that you can incorporate the student learning outcomes is including them into the syllabus each week, as the syllabus has an overview section, and you can talk about the SLOs that will be covered for that week. And then asking the students, what SLOs did we cover, is another way of incorporating the SLOs. So the SLOs really should be at the forefront throughout the entire course. The third one, provide the rationale. Why is this important to learn? And so what we know and understand is that as coaches, we have to remember that faculty who are not formally trained as educators may easily forget to skip this lesson in terms of how to make sure that the students are getting this. And so what we want to do is make sure that we can provide that connection, giving them tools to provide that connection. So the way that we do that is having them link it to daily life or their future career when they're talking about the subject matter, or how this fits into the big picture or the global perspective, as each course should be a small piece of the puzzle to that career application. And then the thing is, how will this content be useful for them? Just as we said, if they don't get it, sometimes they miss it. And so what we really want to do when we are observing faculty is making sure that the faculty is putting those small pieces to the puzzle together so the students can get the big picture or show how it applies to their career.
Number 4 is seeks involvement of students during presentation while maintaining the lesson flow. And so we thought it appropriate to seek your involvement right now. So if you would please, in your chat box, would you please identify what have you done to coach a faculty member to obtain more student involvement? Not what have you done in your own classroom, what have you done to coach a faculty member to obtain more student involvement? We'll pause and give you a chance to write. Hopefully we'll see some things coming into that text box real soon. If you haven't already pulled down your chat box, just go up to the top of your screen, put your cursor at the top of the screen, and click on chat, and the chat box will appear. Put your cursor in it, and start typing.
David, this is Nancy. I don't know if anyone else is having this problem, but I'm not able to type in the chat box.
You're not able to type in the chat box. Okay, I see a couple other people are. Now, and please make sure you, where it says send to, right above the chat box, send it to everyone, okay? So everyone can see what's in the chat box. That's one of your options there, is to send it to everyone. Now, Nancy, I know some people in the past have had trouble because they were trying to click in the wrong place. Right under send to is the box, and I know you probably already know that, so I don't mean to insult your intelligence.
That's okay. I got it. It's working now.
It's working now? Okay, terrific. So Let's take a look at some of those.
Okay, so let's start with work with the faculty on the FORGET process. And so that is the faculty growth and evaluation process that we use to evaluate each of our faculty members. And that's actually an excellent tool to pull out some points to help the faculty, as it says, grow or understand how they can improve their skills as an instructor. And so hopefully we can give you some more tools with the things that we emailed to you early to help strengthen that, or that you can use with that FORGET process. Shared strategies for a small group involvement. I've also shared strategies from cultures of thinking and encourage them to have movement around the room. And so that's very important. We will talk about that even a little bit later, of how you can take lessons and incorporate movement into your lessons. And it could be something just as simply as find a partner on the other side of the room, just to get students up and to move and talk to each other across the room. So that's a great idea. And we're not going to read all of them, and I'm going to pick another one. Ask them to move from behind the desk into the classroom while they teach. And this is an excellent one, and one that I find that I'm very fond of. And so, like, if you have an instructor, as I tell them, that's your territory. And so in order to connect with everyone in the room, it's really important that you do come from behind the lectern or a desk to make sure that you're connecting with everyone. And so if you're using a PowerPoint presentation, you can use the remote to control your PowerPoints. And sometimes when I have that opportunity, I may even go and ask a student to, elaborate on that, or tell me what they think about that while I'm walking about the room. So it is very important to come behind that desk in order to connect with the students. Hopefully everyone has an opportunity to read each other's answers, because there are going to be a few more opportunities we're going to ask for you to chime in, because we know you have great ideas, and we just hope that this opportunity will give you more ideas to put in your toolbox.
I'd like to just briefly mention one that Nancy offered. Suggested that the instructor plan on questions to the entire class and allow students to use devices to find answers and submit answers to a polling software. Yeah. Make use of the devices that students already have, whether they're using their smartphones to look up responses, certainly a way to get them involved. The part of that one we don't want to lose is the second part of that, number 4. Seek involvement of students during the presentation while maintaining the lesson flow.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it's so easy to get off target. And that's something to be observing faculty for when they do involve students. Are they able to maintain the flow of that lesson as well?
And I just want to add to using the devices. That's actually an excellent idea, especially if you have more youthful students. They're very excited to use their devices. And Poll Everywhere, P-O-L-L, Everywhere, is something that you can use for no cost to utilize this type of activity in your classroom.
And certainly involving, asking students to bring their own life experiences in, very, very important. Okay, let's move right on. Thank you for those responses. When we ask again, please offer your responses again. So, moving on. Rashard.
So number 5 talks about treating the students' questions and comments and participation with respect. And this one, it seems like a no-brainer, but sometimes it can come off condescending when you have an expert who is well-versed in their topic and knows what they're talking about, or someone who has taught for years is not treating the student as a peer. And so respect is key. And so for this particular slide, we want to hear from you again. And so in the chat box, we would like you to identify things that a person can do to demonstrate respect. as well as things a person can do to demonstrate lack of respect. And we would like you to quantify these by putting R next to the comment so we'll know that you're talking about this is something you can do to be respectful, and then L so we can also identify some things that can be taken as disrespectful. So we'll give you a few minutes to get your input on treating the students with respect. Oh, yes, identifying the students by name. That's important to take the time to get to know your students. And I know it can be difficult when you have a large class, but again, that's what we have our sheets for, that uses pictures and having the names of the students in your sign-in sheet.
I like that notion of that's a good answer. Let's expand on that. Yes. Acknowledging all responses, even if they are incorrect. Yeah, rather than just ignoring it and waiting for the right answer. Asking students to help their peers to find a correct response if wrong. Yes. Thanks for getting us started. Who can help refine that?
Excellent. Or I might say to someone want to add on to that. So not to downplay an answer that was wrong, but giving another student an opportunity to add to that.
Yes. And yet doing so in a way that nobody walks out of there thinking a wrong answer was a right answer.
Correct.
Yeah. Yes, there's that word, sarcasm.
Sarcasm, yes.
Let's look at some of the L's. Sarcasm, bad answer, let's move on. Ignoring wrong answers and continuing to fish for the right answer from the class. Negative body language, the eye rolling. How about the heavy sigh? All indicate lack of respect. And let's think about what's the impact of some of those things that demonstrate lack of respect, like sarcasm, or just plain wrong, or wrong. Basically what it does is it causes people to shut up, doesn't it? Or I should say clam up.
Yeah.
And not offer responses. So let's go back and look at some more of the R's. It's very important to respond respectfully if students answer incorrectly. Yes, that we've been talking about. Creating a safe environment to be wrong.
Absolutely. I love that one.
Yes, and let's think about that third area of the faculty growth and evaluation process on the faculty observation form. Learning environment. Creating that environment where it's safe.
And that's what we should be facilitating. And again, as coaches, you are observing for that. And sometimes it is hard when you observe humor or sarcasm or humor in poor taste to address that. And can we use humor in the classroom? Yes, but I also tell people you have to be very, very careful when you use humor. And so if you observe it, whether you thought it was inappropriate or not, I think it's important to bring it to an instructor's attention of how it may be taken by some way, whether you talk about cultural differences or ethnic differences and things of that nature, or just maybe not getting humor, that type of humor. And so it is very important to discuss inappropriate and appropriate humor, and sometimes that goes into sarcasm. So I appreciate you bringing up sarcasm as well.
Yeah. Rashawn, the rule of thumb that I've often used regarding humor in the classroom is never make a student or any group of students the butt of the joke. If anybody is going to be the focus of the joke, I'll put myself down, but I try not to put anybody else down. Many of us think we are very witty,
yes,
and very funny, and but sarcasm, none of us probably need to hone or refine that skill any more than we have already. That's best left out of the classroom. So thank you for that, and I think we're ready to move on to the next one. Number 6, periodically checks for understanding. When we do this well, simply checking for understanding can be a method of formative assessment. You know whether students are with you or not, so you can adjust as needed. And the downside risk, if we don't check for understanding, students can get lost and tune out. Now, when I think about checking for understanding, and I see this in classroom observations a lot, and I'd like you to be watching for it, is checking for understanding is more than just, do you understand? Any questions? Is everyone with us? Those are all yes-no questions, and they tell us little or nothing. We call those closed-ended questions, right? So listen for those closed-ended questions, because way too many faculty use those way too often. Any questions? What we should be listening for and encouraging, if we don't hear them, are the open-ended questions, the what, the how, the why. Because those force students to elaborate. Who can provide a summary of what we've just talked about? Based on what we've just covered, what is the primary reason for? That forces students to think, it forces students to talk, it forces students to interact, it forces them to be engaged. And that can lead to lively discussions and the classroom being a bit more vibrant. So periodically checking for understanding doesn't necessarily involve a high level of skill. It involves making sure that we stop and ask. One simple way of doing this is to insert questions periodically right in your PowerPoint slides if you are using PowerPoint slides. Because then it forces us to stop. I think we'd be remiss on this if we didn't talk a little bit about why faculty might be reluctant to stop and check for understanding. From what I've seen and what I've heard is that sometimes it's fear. Fear of losing control, fear of getting off task, I have too much to cover. And we need to encourage faculty, and this kind of goes back to an earlier one where we talk about getting student involvement while maintaining the lesson flow. Recognize they can check for understanding with a well-positioned question and not get themselves off task.
Number 7 talks about involve students in activities to reinforce learning or provide student practice. And we've already kind of started going into that area in terms of what you can do. And I want to reference at this point the activities that are listed in the Learning Center teaching guide that's available that you should have received within the email as well. But before we go into activities that you can look or encourage your instructors to utilize in the classroom, we want to talk about the challenges first. And David already started touching on those in terms of time management. It might be too much to cover and students not wanting to participate. And so this is a particular area of concern very often that we hear from faculty members in terms of like it's too much to cover. And so there's a couple of ways that you can do that in regards to too much to cover. One is utilize your Blackboard in carryover lessons or giving them questions or cutting that off the time management, outlining your evening or outlining your day section that you want to do for time management so you're not losing track of the classroom. Other things it talks about is what you can do in regards to engaging them in the classroom. And again, I referenced the activity for learner-centered teaching that gives you several, more than enough activities. In fact, it's a fabulous, fabulous tool that I have used in coaching some of my faculty, and I would tell them to just choose, it's filled with things, but choose about 3 or 4 things that you make your own and tailor to your own style. But the thing that makes this guide so nice is that it is outlined on what you do when you're trying to check for the student's understanding. So are you trying to check for knowledge? Are you trying to problem solve? And so it becomes something that is awesome to use when you are coaching new faculty or faculty who need to have more learning-centered instruction in their classroom.
Some of you may very well have seen this document before, Activities for Learner-Centered Teaching, that you should be seeing on your screen right now. This is put out by the Effective Teaching and Learning Department here at Baker, and I just wanted to show you one thing, why I like this document so much. It's 44 pages, but if I scroll down to pages 8 and 9, I'm just going to show you a great way to use this document. And what I really like about this is that when you get to this page, learning activities grouped by learning strategy. And so what we see here is, what's the learning strategy? What do I want to do? Do I want to check for understanding? Well, here's all sorts of possible activities that could be done that are ways of checking for understanding. Do I want to use classroom assessment techniques? Here's a whole bunch of possible activities to do that. Do I want to do critical thinking or discussion or journaling or problem-based learning? But then you look at all these possible activities in the right 2 columns, you say, but I don't know what all of those mean. Mm-hmm. All you need to do is look at the very next page, and every one of those activities is listed in alphabetical order with the page where a full explanation of that activity is located. So, again, what's the strategy that I want to do? Do I want to check for understanding? Do I want to do discussion? I pick the possible activity, I see the page, and then I go to that page, and there's the full explanation of the activity. So that's one document that is there as a resource for you.
It's an excellent tool.
And it's a good resource for you to share with faculty members as well. It can be a bit overwhelming because they look at the zillion activities
right.
that are there, and as Rasharon said, you don't need to be expert in all. Pick 3 or 4 and periodically add to your repertoire, add to your toolkit, try a new one. So,
what we want to do now is actually give you an opportunity to talk about what you do to coach faculty regarding the challenges we discussed. So we talked about opportunities to address students being involved in the classroom, but we also talked about those challenges, time management, too much to cover, students not participating. And the reason why we felt like it was important to bring those challenges up first is that we want to be able to address them. We have an excellent tool to talk about strategies, but what are we going to do to address the challenges? So we're going to give you a few minutes to think about that in regards to the challenges that faculty have brought to you and how you have addressed that. Anyone? Do we have? I haven't seen anything pop up yet. We'll give it a few more seconds.
Faculty forget that classroom management skills aren't just for K-12 classrooms, so giving them a selection of techniques helps to make positive learning environments. So true. Thank you, Annette. Yes. Classroom management is one of the biggest differentiators between successful faculty and unsuccessful faculty, whether it's in K-12 or college, the ability to manage the classroom. Classroom management is key. Let's see. Okay, share the importance of planning phase of prepping for class.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Preparation, that planning and preparation on the faculty observation form. Actually pre-plan the activities from the activities for learner-centered teaching that you'd like to include, yes. Embed questions, great ideas. Have good questions ready to relate to topics under discussion, yes. When faculty indicate that they have too much to cover, good one, to incorporate activities into their courses, I suggest that it's not necessarily their role to cover the material,
Absolutely.
but the activities allow the students to discover the concepts. Absolutely. And
well said.
Yes. One of the things that, another way that I say that one is when you start thinking about covering. It's not about how much you cover, it's about how much they learn.
Absolutely.
And because if you're just droning on and then breathing a heavy sigh because you covered everything, yes, but did they learn anything? Building classes from the objectives, please, yes.
Right.
Knowing where one wants to end up and determine what will happen in class. Absolutely. That's the whole notion of backward design, learning by design. Regarding the challenge of time management, helped by providing deadlines for students' class participation tasks. Aha. The challenge, the students aren't participating. Here's a solution. Build in moments for students to interact with each other, the content, and the instructor. Absolutely. I like that. And we actually have a little model with those 3 points. Students need to interact with each other, students need to interact with the content, and students need to interact with the instructor.
Absolutely.
And all 3 of those are very, very important. Keeping those 3 in mind can really help. Thank you very, very much. Let's see. Anything?
And remember, we said you can always use your Blackboard to reinforce any discussion that will start in class or to query for the learning of the topic or anything like that, and use that classroom time, and it was actually stated for more engaging in activities to reinforce the learning. Again, it's not about how much you cover, it's about how much they learn.
One other tool that was emailed to you that I'd like to reference right now, since we're talking about involving students in activities, is this document that I'm putting on the screen right now, Guidelines for Conducting and Debriefing Classroom Activities. We're not going to go through the whole document. You have a copy of it in the email that was sent to you. I just want to show you how it's organized. And there's just some good guidelines sprinkled throughout. Introducing the activities. Some guidelines really, stating the purpose, tell students to wait till they get all the directions before they start, identifying the learning groups, etc. Providing any hints on budgeting their time during the activity. Building in a sense of urgency and make sure you tell them how much time they have for the task. You only have 12 minutes. You only have 25 minutes. So that's all related to setting it up, introducing the task or activity. Then the next page having to do with monitoring the task or activity. Remember that your job during the activity is not to be grading papers or checking email or anything else, but to monitor what the students are doing, providing assistance only when needed, et cetera, et cetera. And then some guidance, some suggestions, guidelines on debriefing the task or activity. And then there's some additional thoughts on debriefing different kinds of activities. So you have that document there. I just wanted to point that out to you because I think if you read those guidelines and then you're in observing a faculty member or coaching a faculty member, some of these may come to mind, either things that you see the faculty member doing well or things that you see blatantly omitted and you say, oh my goodness, no wonder they're not on task. He never told them how much time they had to work, so they're just lollygagging.
Right.
All right, back to our slides. So involving students in activities, let's move right on. So that was number 7.
Number 8 talks about, in some ways, assessing the degree to which students have learned. And so this is where we talk about going into formative assessments and summative assessments. And what I strongly encourage at this point is using this type of terminology as a coach or as an observer when you're talking about helping the instructor bring up their skills in assessing. And so you would talk about the formative assessments, which are those quick assessments, and the summative assessments. We also have the tool of the types of assessment in terms of the matrix that will tell you if they're formative or summative. And so when you're talking to your instructor about what they do, if they tell you they do a lot of tests, then you say, okay, well, that's summative assessments. What are you doing for your formative assessments? What are you doing for that quick assessing of knowledge? And so we want to give you you have a copy of this document as well. Again, a tool that you should have seen before, but I do go back to how you can use this to help coach or strengthen someone's skills, because very often we do have people who are doing some good things, but these are just things that you can utilize to help them do better things. And so with the formative assessment, I talk about written reflection as well as spoken reflection. And a lot of times I will go into, can you tell me what you learned in 7 words? Why 7 words? 7 words is part of critical thinking. 7 words is that formative assessment. It's something that is quick and it can be done at the end of a class or at the end of an assignment or a discussion. Another example of a formative assessment is a short quiz, and you can do pre and post tests in terms of what they learn, and I've done that when they come in to see if they're reading, and very often they aren't. But if they don't know that I'm going to do a pre or a post, what it also says is you do need to read and be prepared. But then at the end of the class, we'll go back over it, and it might be 3 questions and things that I want to reinforce from that night or from the topic to have them go back over. And then we've talked about several times of breaking into small groups, even pairing. And even when you're working online or working through Blackboard, of how they can work with a partner or a group. And when I've done work with the hybrid classes, I would have them pick a partner. Sometimes it might be by the last name. And just a random person that you would connect with, and they would go back and forth in a discussion room that is just specifically for them in terms of what they learned or what they thought the lesson was covering this week. So those are just ways that you can utilize formative assessment through the Blackboard. And then summative assessment, which all of us know that summative assessment are those tests or covers the summary of the lesson, but also case scenarios or presentations or case studies that they can do that gives you what they've learned over the weeks in terms of a presentation or the student being able to give back or show you what they've learned in terms, it could be a physical presentation, a PowerPoint presentation, a demonstration of presentation. And so letting the instructor know there's several different ways you can do the summative and the formative, and that's what this document does.
And all of you have probably seen this document because it was at part of the AIM training. but we wanted to put it here just as a reminder that we don't always have to be starting from scratch. Let's use some of these tools that we've seen elsewhere to coach our faculty as well as work in our own classrooms. Moving on then to the 9th and final component, provides meaningful closure. And notice the scale on this one. This is my personal pet peeve. The 0 end. No attempt is made at closure. The class just ends. Oops, we're out of time. See you next session. As opposed to lesson closure is clearly provided, for example, through the instructor or student summary, linkage of content to the SLOs, major course themes, discussion of next steps, etc. So one of the things I like to encourage faculty is so many minutes, X minutes before the end of class, whether that's 5 or 10, depending on how much closure they're going to have, move into closure. Just stop and move into closure. Another thing needs to be said here. Many of us, when we're doing our classroom observations, we go in at the start of class. And many times that's very appropriate. But one of the things that you might want to do is don't always go in at the beginning. Sometimes go in midway through and stay till the end so that you can see how they wrap up a section or how they wrap up the entire evening or the entire class session. But one of the ways of doing this, ask the students to make links between today's lesson and the SLOs. We don't have to make the links ourselves. Let's see what they got out of the lesson. Okay. If I put the SLO at on the screen at the beginning of the lesson, all right, who can make those linkages for me? How does what we covered today tie to that SLO that we said we'd cover, or these SLOs? You can also preview what's to come. How does what we covered tonight link to where we're going next time, so you can build some anticipation for the next session. And also you can preview homework or the Blackboard discussion board, questions that they need to complete prior to the next session. Students like to know that they are making progress. And when they see you put closure on the lesson, and they see what they've learned today or during this lesson, and they see how it links to the SLOs or the major themes of the course, they say, oh, it was worth my while being here today. Right. And that's important. Students want to know that they are making progress in the class, and providing that closure does that.
So as we get ready to wrap up ourselves, I do want to reference some of the 9. Hopefully, there are things that you're already doing, but I just want to highlight some things that we think that are important that you're looking for, and utilizing the tool that we shared with you as an evaluation for the instructors for each quarter or for each year, or just even as something that you want to do when you're coaching someone who is new. But looking for that meaningful introduction is very important. David just gave an example of how to link the SLOs. Providing rationale. We know why providing rationale is important, but making sure our instructors who are content experts, making sure that they know why the rationale is important. Seeking involvement from the students, and we talked about the learning-centered strategies that you can use in the guide that is provided, of having them pick just a few things out there to add to their toolbox. Treating the students with respect, and we had a great discussion about that and feedback from you guys about the respect, but it's very important that our instructors are examples of how they should be treated respectfully as a professional, as well as respectfully in the classroom. Periodically checking for understanding, and this is that assessment and utilizing the types of assessment matrix to strengthen what you can do for summative and formative assessments. Involve students in activities to reinforce learning and providing practices, and we gave you ways of that, going back to the guide, utilizing Blackboard or the online component, in ways you assess what the students have learned. Okay, so we're looking for the students to be able to communicate what they have learned or be able to display what they have learned, whether it's a physical display or them to verbally give feedback in terms of what they learned, and provides meaningful closure to the lesson. So with that note, I want to know how do you feel about the 9 components that we shared as we get ready to wrap up and open up the floor for questions? But can you see yourself utilizing this tool, or was it too many? But we want to hear from you in terms of the lesson and the components that we've just shared.
And at this point, you can respond either in the text box or you can unmute your phone and we can have more of an open conversation. So whichever way you're more comfortable participating, have at it. What do you think about those 9 components? Oh no, we put everybody to sleep. I'm sure somebody's still awake.
Informative.
Informative, thank you. The breakdown is helpful so that you can better assist faculty during the evaluation process. Thank you. And by the way, this classroom lesson presentation and flow, it says self-assessment. Feel free to make copies of that. Feel free to share it with a faculty member. Let's see, what else? I use a variety of these elements in my classes, and I share several of these ideas and documents with faculty. Thank you.
Good.
Excellent, thank you. Tools give us consistent language to use with faculty.
Absolutely.
I like that idea, yes. Provides a format that can facilitate a great conversation on the components of a great lesson. Thank you, Nancy. These would be appropriate whether the class was live or online. Thank you, William.
Thank you.
Appreciate hearing that. Closure. Hit a button. Provide reflection questions to review and measure student learning. Great idea. Thank you, Charles.
And we'll end with that one because that's like perfect segue into the closure. And we appreciate you joining us today. And we're just going to review the objectives, and hopefully we hit on all of our objectives.
All right. Well, this is what we plan to do. Hopefully you are walking out of here with a tool to assess faculty on those 9 components. That's the tool that we've been using throughout the session. Gain some ideas and activities that you can suggest your faculty members use in their classrooms based on things that you suggested, as well as things that Rasharn and I suggested as well. And finally, access specific resources. You have those 4 documents that you can draw on to coach your faculty on making their classes more vibrant. So that's where we've been during this hour. I have about 6 minutes to 3. So at this point, thank you so much for participating. There's a list of those 4 resources. And at this point, if you have any questions at all or any comments that you'd like to make, the floor is now open. David, what's the name of the larger document you referenced earlier? The name of that document, and I'll just show it to you right now, the name of that document is Activities for Learner-Centered Teaching. It's 44 pages, but that's the name of the document, and you have that in the email that was forwarded to you by Allison.
The document can be overwhelming. As we said, it is a large document that really gives detail of those activities and what you can do and what they're supposed to learn. You know, as we suggested, only pick a few out of them, and especially if you're coaching a new faculty, maybe 2 that they want to incorporate, and then you can go and observe to see how this activity has been facilitated, or either going to them after and ask them how did they utilize this in the classroom, what did they do.
Nancy Waitman made an interesting comment here where you say, all are extremely important components of lesson instruction and delivery. Yes. I guess maybe assessing lesson prep might also be considered important. No doubt about that. It is one of the 4 components in the faculty growth and evaluation process. The only reason it is not on this list is because these were components of a lesson flow. But you are absolutely correct. If a lesson is going to flow well, that preparation is a must. Absolutely, and thank you for mentioning that. Anything else before we wrap up? Any other questions, comments?
There's one. Could you please?
Could you please email me the 4 documents? That's Charles Johnstone. I will do that as soon as we are done. Absolutely will, Charles. Thank you for participating also, Harold. So with that, we will wrap up. Thank you all for being here today, and we look forward to you participating in future sessions as well. Tomorrow, Rasharn and I are doing a similar session for faculty members, take out the coaching parts, but still focusing on those 9 components.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Thank you again, and we appreciate you joining us today and what you do for our students and for our staff.
At this point, Allison, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, and I would like to thank the 2 of you for your presentation. You did an awesome job, and I look forward to tomorrow morning.
Very good.
Take care.